Hey everybody. Oh. Hey everybody, back again. This week we're going to be talking about items and how to be effective in building your items. Um, so pretty much there's three branches of items. There's your offensive items, your defensive items, and your utility items. For those who are just starting off in a champion, I personally recommend using the recommended items just because it kind of gives you a basic feel of how the champion should be played. I know there's a lot of people out there who say never go with the recommended builds, but I never really had that big of a problem with it. If you're looking for a more in-depth guide for building a certain champion, I would check out Mobifier. I'll leave a description here I'll leave a link in the description for you. But that's where I go when I'm starting off a champion and I really want to know how to play that champion before I jump into actually playing that champion. All full build items, or items that are the last in the build tree, will have a special ability, and these are either passive or unique. And so what the passive does is you always have this special ability. Most of them are going to say unique, which means they won't stack. I'll show you a little example of that in a minute. But the active abilities are all unique to their own item, and so like this Randuin's will slow all enemies within a certain range of you. So going in, I'm going to start off with the utility items, and I'm going to start off in boots. Even though they do have offensive and defensive abilities, their biggest purpose is to get you around the map. So they're in utility for me. So, like I was saying, they have unique passives. So they all have a unique passive of increased move speed, and then they all have other unique passives, except for the Berserker Greaves, Ninja Tabby, and yeah, just the Berserker Greaves and Ninja Tabby, the only ones that don't have their own extra ability. Something I see a lot is actually two Berserker Greaves, and it only gives you the bonus 45 movement speed, even though you have two equipped, because it is unique. Now, an attack speed item like a dagger isn't as good as that, but I mean, to buy the boots, you're losing 300 gold when you have to go sell it because it's filling up a slot that you could have filled with something else. I really feel it's like a bad idea, but I mean, people do it. Next, in your utility items, of course, is your vision items. You have your free items, your warding trinket, which gives you a little sight ward for 1 minute. And then you have your... Oh, whoops. I gotta move. And then you have your sweeping lens, which is... Oh, wait. Yeah, you have your sweeping lens, which will help you clear out those wards. And as you become better and become matched up against better players, it's a good idea to get this and to clear out the enemy ward. And then Scrying Orb is a lot like Clairvoyance, in that it'll let you get vision on an area of the map farther away from where you are. I'll go ahead and give you a little example. I don't actually ever use this item because I don't know how to use it effectively, but it's a good one if you're behind and you still want to contest objectives like Dragon and Baron. See, because it gives you a little sight. Not very big circle, not for very long, but it could be enough to know to find out where your opponents are at. Back to utility items, we have your gold items. So you have one for each type of item. You have utility here as your Talisman of Ascension, which gives you a lot of gold for just being passive, but it also gives you a great active, which increases the movement speed of your entire team. I usually take this as if I'm doing support over the Frost Queen's Claim, just because its final active ability is just so slow. Even though I might take Spell Thief's Edge at the beginning for the extra poke gold, I generally will switch over to Talisman of Ascension just because has so much better utility. The last one is Face of the Mountain, which is a pure defensive item. It gives you a lot of health. It doesn't give you as much gold if you're not using it to its fullest. So what happens is you share gold with your ally, and if you're not focusing like the cannon creep when it comes up, then you're gonna miss out on a lot of gold. While thinking about this week's video, I kind of thought maybe I should have put this earlier for this exact reason right here. So each item is built from other items. So each final build item is built from other items. And you see that this Infinity Edge is 3,800, and it's comprised of a BF sword that's worth 1,500. So if I buy this BF sword, it's now 1,500 less gold, and that happens each time you buy a new item, leaving the Infinity Edge to just its base cost. A lot of players don't really understand that, and they'll just go out and wait till they can buy the full item, which gives them like plateaus of power, whereas it should be more of a gradual slope of increasing strength. So next I'm going to be talking about defensive items. So when you're in lane, you don't really want to build these right away. These are more to like hold off until late game when you're merging up as a team fight. And the reason behind that is if you don't have your offensive items early game, you won't be able to contribute much when it comes to team fight, and you'll just kind of be like a wet fish in the fight. If you really need to, you can build like a chain vest or a Negatron cloak, and that will give you a little bit of sustain. But like getting a Guardian Angel right off the bat has zero offensive capabilities. You are just going to be like a sponge. I don't know. You just sit there and don't do anything. Now, if you're going to build your offensive items, you do still have the option of having like a offensive item that keeps you in the fight. So with AD champions, that comes in the form of lifesteal. So you're able to recover health as you're doing damage. It's a win-win. Other ones that do that are Adam's Impaler, gives you armor, and then if you're looking for just health, there's quite a few items that give you health and attack damage. These are all really good options. Instead of building full tank, it's to build like an off-tank item. Then as far as offensive AP items, I mean there's so many. There's so many, really. There's a lot down here at the higher end level that give you over 100 AP, and then they all have their own special abilities. Just like there's so many options for AP champions, it's not really as fair. Let's see. So you have Deathfire Grasp, which does 15%. It has an active which will make other people more damage, and then Lichbane has a passive that increases your basic attack after using a spell. So if you have really fast cooldowns, you could be proccing this Lichbane and doing a ton of damage. That's very similar to Nashor's Tooth, which just applies a little bit of AP to all your attacks. I mean, it depends on how you want to play your APC, but there's a lot of options out there for you. For this last part, I want to go over an example build for the different types of champions. I don't really have time to get footage. I didn't have time to get footage for all the roles because I didn't really expect to throw this part in here. It's kind of last minute. But let's talk about ADC right now, just because Yasuo, he's kind of like an ADC. He doesn't have the range, but we have this Blade of the Rune King, which is like a staple for most ADCs, just because it's, especially if there's a lot of big enemy champions, because its passive, it does 8% of the target's current health in bonus physical damage. That's every hit. And then its active is it steals 25% of their movement speed and does 10% of the target's maximum health and damage, healing you for that same amount. So it's just really, really good. And then Infinity Edge gives you a lot of attack damage, 80 attack damage, and its crit damage actually goes up from 200 to 250, which makes it a very, very strong item. And then, of course, it also gives you a huge crit chance as well. Let's see. For other attack items, you could always go for Bloodthirster, which is another big attack item, as well as 20% lifesteal, which is, again, for the sustain. You don't want to go necessarily all 5. You don't want to go like 5 offensive items. So you kind of want to pick and choose. I would go 3 offensive items max. That way you have one defensive item for AP and 1 defensive item for AD. But remember, you don't have to go full defense. You could just do a hybrid kind of thing. I'm showing this Runon's Hurricane. It does a lot of attack speed. Good for getting stacks on champions that need to get stacks. Let's see. And generally you'll go Berserker Greaves and or Boots of Mobility or Boots of Swiftness if you really want to get around more. Some defensive options are this Banshee's Veil. So if you're up against an AP assassin, it's really great because it can interrupt their combos because the first hit will be negated, damage and status effects. So if like Ash hits you with an arrow or Thresh hooks you or Fizz throws his ult on you, it's completely negated, which is really nice. Now if you're going against more AD champions, you can use that Randuin's Omen, which is huge armor buff and huge health buff, as well as its passive will slow attack speed of enemy champions, and its active slows everyone around you. It's just an awesome item for defense. Other good magic resist items include this Mauve whatever you say, Maloration. What, I don't know how to pronounce that. The Maw, because it gives you a shield. So if you get hit and you go low, then you're able to have that 400. I think it's 400 health shield to sustain you out through that. Another good one is if you're AP, is to go like Athena's Unholy Grail because it gives you magic resistance and it gives you mana regeneration. Next up, I have some footage of tanks, so that's what we're going to be doing next. Okay, so this is my Garen build. He's got a Black Cleaver for his offensive item, and he's got some Boost of Swiftness for the Pursuit, and he's got the Sunfire Cape, which will help him do a little bit more damage, but really just be more tanky because it gives him 450 health and 45 armor. And then I'm going to be building up towards this Warmogs, which will give me a lot more armor. Oh, well, it'll give me a lot more health and health regen, which is going to really help me out. So, as a bruiser, you really kind of do want more tanky items than defensive items, or than offensive items. So, after I build Warmogs after Sunfires, I'm going to have two defensive items, but only one offensive item. So I'm probably going to go ahead and build another offensive item if we're doing well. If I think I have to do a little bit more carrying, then I'll probably stop building this Warmogs and build more offense right away. Yeah, that's probably it. Moving on to mid lane champions. If I were to play like a Brand or somebody who's really does a lot of AP damage, I would probably go ahead and do three damage items, kind of like an ADC. I'd probably go with Liandry's Torment because it gives you health, and then depending on my cooldowns, I would go with Lichbane. If my cooldowns were pretty long, then I probably wouldn't go with Lichbane, but I would go with a Deathfire Grasp. The Liandry's Torment though is probably a staple for all of my APCs just because it does that burn damage. And then other viable options then are going to be like a Zhonya's Hourglass will give you more armor. So if you're dealing with a lot of armor or a lot of attack damage, that's a great one because it'll help you absorb a little bit of that, and its active is like a shield. It'll make you just go invulnerable and you can't be hurt. Another good well-rounded item is the Rabadon's Death Cap, and it's another 120 AP bonus, and it also increases all your other AP by 30%. It's actually pretty handy. If you're trying to do more like slowing them down, like if you're going to play a support, a good one is that Rylai's Crystal Scepter. It's 100 AP, and it gives you It slows down the enemies. So that's a good one. APC and support kind of have the same build items for the AP part of it, except for with a support you might only have one. You will probably only have one, maybe two if you get the late game. But yeah, you're gonna definitely start off with a gold item, whichever one you feel fits your style more, and then you're gonna want to get a Sightstone, which will give you health and wards, all utility all day. You can build a Ruby Sightstone if you're kind of running out of items to build, or you need a little bit more health. But there's also this Locket of Iron Stellari, and what that does is it gives you and everyone around you magic resistance, which is awesome. And it's active will give you a little shield. Too bad there's not one that does armor the same way, because I'm always more worried about getting struck down by attack damage instead. But you can just build armor for that. This Mikhail's Crucible is good as well. It acts kind of like Athena's Unholy Grail in giving you mana regeneration, and it also removes CC, which is actually really nice. You got to be pretty good at it because CC generally doesn't last all that long, so you got to be fast. But it's good for cleansing it. Another good one, if you have a lot of AP damage on your team, is this Abyssal Scepter. Increases your own damage, and it reduces the magic resistance of the enemy team. Of course, you have the junglers, who you can't really put into any specific field because they could be AD, AP, assassin, tank, whatever. So just build your jungle how it should be built. And if you have questions, again, I would recommend checking out Mobifier. That's where I go for checking out builds and strats for your specific champion. I think that's all for this week. Again, check me out next week. We're going to be talking about team fights, engages, the whatnots. Anyway, as always, I hope you had fun. I had fun. Catch you next time.